There's a hot summer sky over the racetrack at Daytona, Florida. The temperature, 95 degrees. There are about 44,000 people gathered in the infield and in the grandstands for this year's running of the Firecracker 400. Hello, I'm Jim McKay speaking to you from the pit area here at Daytona. You know, this is always kind of a nostalgic place to come because in a very real way, this is where speed began in the United States. Just after the turn of the century, they began making the high-speed runs on the beach down here. People like Barney Oldfield and Henry Ford himself was here. It was the early 1920s before anybody went 180 miles an hour, even on the straightaway of the beach. To get in the Firecracker 400 here today and be in the first 14 cars, you had to average better than 180 miles an hour for your qualifying speed. That's how fast it's gotten here. That's how fast it will be today. And on the pole, the car to beat, it's a fellow with the kind of unheroic sounding name of Charlie Glotzback. Also on today's program, you're going to see again the International Cliff Diving Championships from Acapulco, Mexico, where a team of American high divers went down to challenge the native Mexicans. Here are some of the men who will be battling it out today at Daytona. This is Bobby Isaac of Catawba, North Carolina. Started as an amateur driver 13 years ago. Richard Petty, one of the all-time great names on the NASCAR circuit, 31 years old 2 days ago. And this is L.Z. Wiley, Buddy Baker Jr., all 6 feet 5 inches of him. Mario Andretti was born in Italy. Basically a USAC driver, but he'll try it in anything that has wheels. Cale Yarborough is from Timmonsville, South Carolina, former high school football player and the defending champion in this race. A.J. Foyt. I guess all we need to say is one of the great names in racing history. Leroy Yarborough is no relation to Cale, but very often they've hooked up in some real tight battles. And this is Charlie Glotzback of Georgetown, Indiana, on the pole. Christy Kanamaki is with Paul Goldsmith.
Paul Goldsmith, one of the top drivers here at Daytona, has been a pioneer in bringing technical innovations to the Speedway. Paul was the first to wear a cool suit. What does that do, Paul?
Well, it keeps us from sweating here, Chris. Just like we're sweating standing here, you'll be hotter than I will when I get this turned on inside the race car. There'll be ice water flowing through these little veins, and it will keep us real cool.
What new technical innovations in your number 99 Dodge today?
Well, the space people have come up with a safety light, we'll call it. It's a light that will blink on a caution amber light when there's an accident or anything happen anywhere on the racetrack. This light will light up inside my automobile. It's something that very well could be worked out on the highway for an accident way up ahead of automobiles on a turnpike or something like that. This light could be activated by a state trooper that arrived at an accident or anything like that and warn the oncoming traffic. It's really a pretty good outfit.
Paul Goldsmith, number 99, really a test bed on wheels.
Okay, the drivers getting into their cars now. This is David Pearson, and here Darrell Derringer. By the way, there will be a third event on Wide World today, the Devon Horse Show from Pennsylvania. A tremendous contrast to this high speed here at Daytona. Here's the way the cars line up in their rows. On the pole, remember, Charlie Glotzback, and right next to him, Richard Petty in car number 43. Glotzback in a Dodge, Petty in a Plymouth. In the second row, car number 98, Leroy Yarborough in a Mercury, and number 21, Cale Yarborough, also in a Mercury. The next row, number 17, David Pearson in a Ford, number 29, A.J. Foyt, also in a Ford. The next row will be number 3, Buddy Baker in a Dodge, number 7, Bobby Johns of Miami in a Chevrolet. And one more row in number 22 will be Darrell Derringer in a Plymouth, and number 16, Tiny Lund of Cross, South Carolina in a Mercury. Of course, there are a good many other cars in the field, but those are the top 10, the ones we'll probably be seeing the first few laps at any rate. There's the pace car out in front.
160 laps, Jim, a long way for 400 miles here.
It sure is, and there you get a good look at the banking at Daytona that makes these tremendously high speeds possible. Looking for the green flag, and the pace car is coming off the track. They're going to get it this time. Here comes the start. And there goes Leroy Yarborough, car number 98, ducking down low and taking the lead very quickly. Charlie Glotzback on the pole really got past fast in the first turn.
Right now he's going into the first turn 6, Jim, a rare happening.
Sure is. In first place, however, is Leroy Yarborough, and that is Richard Petty in that blue car, right on his rear bumper. In third place is Cale Yarborough, and Cale moving up very quickly to get into the battle. That's the way he likes it. Leroy Yarborough, number 98, in first place. Number 43, Richard Petty, is second. Number 21, Cale Yarborough, is third. We're on the first lap of 160 of them in the Firecracker 400 at Daytona, Florida.
They're really going, Jim. Leroy got down on the apron there to grab the lead, and he's making the most of it now.
There you see that car number 98, 1968 Mercury, driven by Leroy Yarborough from Columbia, South Carolina. There is the lake in the infield. You know, somebody went into that lake one time, and he stayed down, what, about 30 seconds, didn't they, Chris?
That's right.
With the windows rolled up and came out without a scratch.
It was a thrilling sight for the fans.
And Cale Yarborough has passed Richard Petty going into second place. You saw the timers there in the pits, and we're taking a timing on this second lap. Leroy Yarborough still the leader. Listen to this speed, Chris. 187.110 on that second lap of this race.
Jim, I believe that's the fastest lap ever turned here in competition. That's remarkable, especially under this burning sun.
And there you see the Yarboroughs, as they have been so often this year, hooked up in a 1-2 duel. Leroy the leader at this moment, Cale is second, and Richard Petty is third. Cale is a real charger. He's kind of replaced Junior Johnson as the fellow who likes to get right out in front at the beginning of these races, hasn't he?
That's right, and Leroy Yarborough is Junior Johnson's driver in this race.
That's right, Junior Johnson, having retired as a driver, is now a car owner. The battle goes on, just a few feet separating these first three cars at Daytona, and we'll be back in a minute. We return to Daytona, where we're still in the early going of the Firecracker 400. The leader is Cale Yarborough in car number 21. Second place, number 98, Leroy Yarborough, no relation. In third place, number 43, Richard Petty. These three really battling it out.
We've got two Mercury Cyclones and a Plymouth Roadrunner up there, Jim.
And they're going after Cale this time. There goes Leroy by him on the high side, and Richard's trying to make it. Looks like they're both going to get by him, Chris. What happened there?
I think that Cale slowed down a little bit in the traffic and lost his momentum.
Well, that's about all it takes when you're going at speeds up to 187 miles an hour.
Remarkable.
Good low look at these automobiles as they race past at these incredible speeds. And there goes an engine. That's number 52, Lenny Waldo.
Boy, that smoke is really dense there, Jim. Everybody's slowing down.
But look at Richard going through there. Richard Petty has taken the lead just before that yellow flag comes out.
As they say in racing, he's braver than Dick Tracy.
He sure is. But Lenny Waldo is out of the race. Richard Petty has taken the lead, and the yellow flag is out. The green flag is out again in the Firecracker 400, and Leroy Yarborough very quickly ducked in front of Richard Petty. So it is now Leroy Yarborough, number 98, Richard Petty second, and Cale Yarborough third. Now Cale has moved past Richard into second place.
Here you have to run flat out to win this race, and this is the way we got our car set up. So I look for Cale and I both just to go ahead and run.
You're a Southerner, Leroy. Is this heat going to bother you?
Well, I hope not. I've been laying around in the sun all week, but it might get mighty hot here before the day's over.
What kind of a strategic race will you drive? Just foot to the floor all the way? Can you and the car stand it in this kind of heat?
Well, we'd better. That's the way we got planned to going.
That was Chris Economaki talking to Leroy Yarborough before this race began. Right now, of course, Leroy is most occupied. He's in first place, but look at Cale chasing him again. And Cale just might get him.
Taking advantage of the draft, Jim, and just blew by him.
Popped right pass, and Cale Yarborough now in car number 21 is again the leader in the race. Leroy is second. Richard Petty is third. Tremendous pace being set here, and oddly enough, very few cars dropping out in this tremendous heat.
That's right. Buddy Baker's got that Dodge up there in fourth place.
Okay, well, we'll be back at the Firecracker 400 in another minute. You're looking through the windshield of car number 76, driven by Roy Tyner, as he races in the Firecracker 400 at Daytona, Florida. Roy, not among the leaders right now, but isn't that an interesting view? That's what it looks like to the drivers. In the lead is Cale Yarborough in car number 21. Second place still is car number 98, Leroy Yarborough. And in third place, number 43, Richard Petty. Cale, as you can see, is stretching it just a little bit right now, and there it is, his lead car. But the other two very close for second and third.
Oh, Cale is making one man happy on the grounds, Jim. Bunky Knudsen, the new president of the Ford Motor Company down here from Detroit to enjoy the action, and enjoying it he is.
Getting hotter than ever here. Temperature near 100 degrees. Well over that down on the racetrack itself, of course. As Cale Yarborough continues to stretch it out. Cale won this race a year ago. He won the Daytona 500 here last winter. Look at this battle for 5th place right now. Here we have on the low side, Darrell Dieringer trying to move up and pass A.J. Foyt, and he's going to do it. A.J. Foyt now in 6th position. In 7th place is David Pearson, but now there comes Bud Moore in car number 1 passing him. Four cars battling for 5th.
It shows what the draft can do for you.
Into the pits now comes Buddy Baker, who was running so well in 4th position. And that car was in a strange attitude.
Boy, here's Petty really close to Leroy in fight for second place.
The blue car with the white top, if you're watching in color, is Richard Petty chasing Leroy Yarborough.
The speed, Jim, still remains tremendous. Well into the 180s, which is remarkable in a long-distance race of this nature.
Here they are, still dicing. The timing's going on in the pits, and I think some of these fellows must be shaking their watches to make sure they're right. And Petty has got him.
And he's setting up now, going high on the track to set up to pass the slower cars directly in front of him.
There, by the way, is the fellow who was on the pole, car number 6, Charlie Glotzback, and we'll keep an eye on him because Charlie has been running very well and all by himself in 4th place. Here is the leader, Cale Yarborough, in car number 21, and we're taking a timing on him for this lap. See just how fast he is going.
This is going to slow him down, this traffic, Jim.
Slow down, of course, is a comparative expression. Let's see what it is. 50.1 seconds, which according to the chart comes to 179.6 miles an hour. We're back at the Firecracker 400, and that is Cale Yarborough in car number 21, still leading the race. This is Jim McKay reporting along with Chris Economaki. In second place still is car number 98, that's Leroy Yarborough, but there's been a change. Richard Petty has dropped back because of tire trouble, and these two cars are battling for 3rd at the moment. Those are the cars of Darrell Dieringer and Charlie Glotzback, and into the pits now for about the 4th or 5th time today comes Mario Andretti, who has not been doing very much at all. But there is Darrell Dieringer in the purple car, if you're watching in color, in 3rd place now, but right behind him, Charlie Glotzback in that red number 6.
And they're hooked up, Jim, in a Chrysler Corporation draft. That's a Plymouth and a Dodge.
And here comes Charlie. Well, for the fans of the young man from Indiana, it's clap hands. Here comes Charlie up into 3rd place, ahead of Darrell Dieringer. Up in front, remember, is still the leader, Cale Yarborough, and Leroy Yarborough in 2nd place. Again, we're looking through the windshield of car number 76, driven by Roy Tyner. We'll be back in a minute for more of the Firecracker 400. Again, we return to the Daytona International Speedway. Cale Yarborough is still the leader in the Firecracker 400. In 2nd place is Leroy Yarborough. And here is Cale into the pits. You're going to see one of the great pit crews of all time right now, the Wood Brothers. 6 men over the pit wall. That's the limit allowed, right, Chris?
That's right. Gasoline going in the back, and right side tires being changed on this stop. 10 gallons in, and the second 10-gallon can ready to go in.
There you see the clock.
Window is still up on the driver's side.
And he is in motion. Look at that. 19.6 seconds for a full load of gas and changing both tires on the right side. Into the pits now comes David Pearson, who had a coast in. Looked like he ran out of gas.
That's right, and this is going to cost him a lot. He was well up there with the leaders, and now he's lost considerable ground. Jim, Buddy Baker's out of the race. A rear end bearing failed on his Charger, and A.J. Foyt is also in the pits. He grazed the wall, and Bobby Allison, one of the favorite Chevrolet drivers, is out with rear end trouble.
And here we see Charlie Glotzback and Darrell Derringer still battling for third place. That's Glotzback in number 6 out in front in that race at the moment. A number of individual battles here. Here now we have David Pearson, who's back out on the track, and he's just about ahead of Bud Moore. However, they're battling for 9th position right now. So, as you said, David really lost some time by having to coast into the pits. Cale Yarborough all by himself on the lead.
Jim, that pit work that the Wood brothers performed really allows them to pull away when there's no yellow flags. And there's a tire off of Richard Petty's car, really wearing him out today.
We indicated that Richard has been having tire trouble, and that's why he dropped back. This is Leroy Yarborough in car number 98 in 2nd place. Let's time him on a lap and see if he's going as fast or possibly faster than Cale right now. See if he's making up any ground.
You're going to have to go some to do that.
We timed Cale just a little while ago, and he did it in 50.1 seconds. So we'll see if Leroy's faster than that. Headed into the home stretch right now towards that start-finish line. There's the clock and the time. 51.4 seconds, which is just over 176 miles an hour. Not as fast as Cale Yarborough.
You know, Jim, the race average is at 166.6, a record speed, only one yellow flag having waved so far today.
And now we can only get the first 2 cars on our screen at the same time by means of this split screen. That's Cale up on top and Leroy down on the bottom. So it goes in the Firecracker 400 at the Daytona International Speedway. Here still battling for 3rd are Glotzback and Derringer. Derringer making another bid.
And again, they're hooked up in the drafting position.
Now sliding back just a little bit, but he's still well within the draft. Here's where he might try to pop out of it coming out of that 4th turn.
Whoa, look at Glotzback back end sliding on the turn.
He couldn't pass him that time, and we'll be back in a minute. We're back at Daytona, and this is Jim McKay still reporting along with Chrissy Katamaki as Cale Yarborough apparently is going to wing his way to an easy victory in the Firecracker 400. There you see him in his car number 21. Here's the 2nd place car, number 98, driven by Leroy Yarborough. And here's an airplane coming in for a landing, and I am sure that both of those cars are flying faster than that plane. Don't you think?
I should think so, Jim. They're really moving well over 160 the average.
And here is
only one yellow flag.
Sorry, here's the battle for 3rd place, though, between Charlie Glotzback in car number 6 and Darrell Derringer in car number 22. Here, I think you can get the feeling of the tremendous speed.
They say that backswitch at Daytona the fastest ride in auto racing.
And this is Richard Petty, who's been having tire trouble for a good many laps now having trouble of another kind.
This is it for Richard. Man who has won at this track a number of times, and last year's defending NASCAR champion.
Member of a great stock car racing family. The yellow flag out, and by the way, that's only the 2nd yellow flag of the day. There's Father Lee Petty, and that's his brother there?
That's right, that's Maurice, the engine man in the car. They're looking for him to come around, but he's going to go right to the garages. He knows he's finished for today.
However, a comparatively small number of cars have gone out of the race. Look at Leroy Yarborough taking a little shower bath while he's in the pits.
The yellow flag is to pick up the parts of Richard's engine, and golly, Leroy is really loading up with water. And he's on his way out to 21.5 seconds, gas, tires, and a shower.
And now into the pits comes Darrell Derringer, who has been battling with Charlie Glotzback for 3rd place. And here's Cale Yarborough, the leader, in the pits for his final scheduled pit stop of the afternoon.
This should set the stage for some clear going to the end. With enough gas, everyone will have enough gas to go right to the 160th lap now with no more stops, providing nothing untoward happens.
Cale's trying to reach his cup of water, and he couldn't. There, he's got it now. Changed all 4 tires, and look at the time. Again, the Wood brothers getting a phenomenal pit stop, 29.7 seconds.
No real hurry here with the safety car on the track and the participants proceeding around slowly. Here we have a situation, 2 cars being held because they overshot the safety car. Bobby Isaac in 71 and Mario Andretti in number 11, and they're going to be penalized 1 lap.
But the leader, Cale Yarborough, of course, was allowed to go back out on the racetrack. Yarborough the leader, Yarborough 2nd. Cale in 1st place and Leroy in 2nd. The afternoon just about done for the pit crews here yet.
Cale now has a 2-lap lead on the entire field, Jim.
With the green flag out, and they're racing. David Pearson has been moving well up into this field. Remember, he was 9th a while ago. He is now 5th. Glotzbach is 3rd at the moment, and Tiny Lund is 4th. Darrell Derringer dropped back several places on his pit stop.
Lund came out of nowhere to become a contender here in the late stages.
Glotzbach is in the middle of that group of cars. If you're watching in color, it's that red car, and Tiny Lund is the white one just behind him there.
Traffic's getting heavy in the late stages. They're shuffling here. Everybody's trying to make up now what they couldn't do in 300 and some odd miles. They're trying to do in the last few.
And there's the end of the day for Jim Hurtubise. Through the years, has certainly been a hard luck racer many times.
One of the most popular drivers in the sport.
Again, Cale Yarborough. And very, very few laps remaining now. A look on the split screen at Leroy Yarborough on the top. This time, Cale Yarborough on the bottom. But, of course, Cale is the one in first place.
2 Mercury Cyclones, and then the same 2 cars that were 1-2 in the Daytona 500 earlier this year.
Coming out of that 4th turn. Down towards the start-finish line again.
Glotzbach is in 3rd place.
Not anymore. Look, this is Charlie Glotzbach right now. He has blown a tire. Something has happened out there. He's lost the tire, that's for sure. It's shredded, flying behind him, and Charlie doing a great job of controlling that automobile, wasn't he?
The vibration, Jim, appears to have broken some of the steering parts, and he's going to be hard put to get back in the action with just a few laps remaining.
Wow.
Scott Nolan's crew going to go to work on it and give it a try.
Tough break for Charlie Glotzbach, who was holding a very firm 3rd place when that tire blew. Cale Yarborough, the leader then. Leroy Yarborough is 2nd. We'll be back for the finish in a minute. There's less than a lap and a half to go in the Firecracker 400 at the Daytona International Speedway, and this is Cale Yarborough, who's going to be the winner unless something most unusual happens.
Jim, Tiny Lund just lost 3rd place with a late race pit stop.
Okay, well, that moves David Pearson then up into 3rd place behind Cale and Leroy Yarborough, and Pearson at one point had been as far back as 9th position. Quite a comeback. The white flag meaning 1 lap to go for the leader. Sky still blue overhead, and it's still a very, very hot afternoon. It's going to be easily a record speed. The old record was 153 plus miles per hour, and Cale Yarborough is going to average 167 plus as he's on that final lap right now.
This will be a great day. No problems at all on that Wood Brothers prepared automobile, and everything's broke right for him.
This, of course, will be his 3rd victory in a row at Daytona. He won this race last year, the Daytona 500 last winter, and now in just a few seconds, the Firecracker 400 again. 29-year-old Cale Yarborough headed for victory. The checkered flag, and it's all over. Cale taking a little victory lap. Protection one, too. It never hurts to take that extra lap in case somebody's miscounted, does it?
A hot day, the scorers sometimes miss out.
The ever-present beauty queens waiting, Miss Daytona and Miss Dixie, Joy Stiles and Cheryl Johnson. And into victory lane comes Cale Yarborough. Chris is in victory lane now. And there you see the scoreboard announcing Cale Yarborough in a 68 Mercury is the winner of the race. Leroy was 2nd and David Pearson was 3rd. Let's go down to Chris.
Well, Cale, 3 in a row. Congratulations. You must be happy.
Thank you, Chris. I couldn't be happier.
It looks like victory lane, though, sometimes is tougher than the race.
Yes, it is. The car was handling so well, everything was working so well. It was when I saw the 5-lap signal, I was really surprised. I didn't realize it was that near the end of the race, but I was real happy.
Cale, you won by over 3 laps. It's one of the widest winning margins in the history of the race. Why did you build up such a big lead?
Well, Chris, as I said, the car was working so well and everything was just going so well. I was backing off and just driving it as easy as I thought it would run and run out front. We just kept walking away.
Well, it was a great race, Cale. You've got back-to-back Firecracker victories with a Daytona 500 in between. Continued good luck to you.
Thank you, Chris.
Back to you, Jim McKay.
So it was then at the Firecracker 400 at Daytona 1968. The Yarbros running first and second. No relation, remember, and actually spelled a little bit differently. But it was Cale, the likable, tow-headed former high school football star, who ran away from the field at the beginning and held on to win by that tremendous margin. That was the story today at Daytona. The executive producer of ABC's Wide World of Sports is Roone Arledge. The Firecracker 400 produced by Dick Kirchner and directed by Lou Volpicelli, who was also the producer-director of our cliff diving coverage. The Devon Horse Show, produced for ABC by Jim Spence. Our associate directors, Lou Frederick and Bernie Hoffman. The technical director at Daytona Beach, Mort Romanoff. Next week on ABC's Wide World of Sports, the World Figure 8 Stock Car Thrill Race along with the World Lumberjack Championships. For now, this is Jim McKay along with Chris Economaki saying so long from Daytona. Air travel arrangements for ABC's Wide World of Sports made through United Airlines, who also furnished promotional consideration. Today's program was pre-recorded.